let's talk about Anita Sarkeesian's Damsel in Distress Part 1, Tropes versus Women in Video Games. First off, the title. It is worded as if the trope damsel in distress and women are at odds, as if this trope is damaging towards women. But her video is showing the trope, not how it's damaging towards women. Her phrasing is propaganda-ish, it's setting a tone, it's a foregone conclusion, it's not impartial, it is inconsistent to the description of the series, which is to examine plot devices associated with female characters, supposedly. Second observation, this video has the same quality as her previous videos. She raised over $150,000 for this series. After being many months late, this is the same old. The actual content, which I'm about to get to, doesn't show where the money went either. About half of the games she features are obscure or commercial failures, which goes into the propaganda-ish things, as you'll see later. This whole video could have been made using Wikipedia and securing game footage from somewhere online. There's no evidence that she bought and played these particular games. In fact, she doesn't even need to. Anyone could have made this video just by looking around on the internet. People have made similar videos without any funding at all. The first game that Anita brings up is Dinosaur Planet, which later becomes Star Fox Adventures. Why did it become Star Fox Adventures? Money, of course. Nintendo needed a launch title with a recognizable and bankable character for the GameCube. Dinosaur Planet had two main characters, Saber and Crystal, male and female. Saber looked similar to Fox. Bada bing, bada boom, Star Fox Adventures. This isn't a rare practice for one game in production to be changed into another. One of the most well-known games in a franchise that had originally been a standalone title is Super Mario Bros. 2. The original game, released in Japan, was Doki Doki Panic, but more on that later. In Anita's video, she only mentions Crystal's character from Dinosaur Planet. She says Fox replaced Crystal. She gives no mention of Saber at all, the male playable character, the other main character. She's basically lying by omission by leaving that fact out. She says that Fox took Crystal's place when in fact he replaced Saber. You know, the character he already looked like. True, Crystal was relegated to be a love interest. Yes, that is lazy writing, but everything about this game is lazy. Was it a sinister plot by Miyamoto to keep a game from being released with a main female character, as Anita implies? No. It was about franchise recognition for a new console. Easy plot, easy money. After opening with Star Fox Adventures discussion, Anita then delves into the history of damsel in distress trope. As she points out, it has been around for thousands of years. Why expect any medium not to use it? It is a classic plot that appeals to both men and women. Women like it because who wouldn't like to think that someone would love them enough to go through hell and back for them if they needed help. Men like it because who doesn't love pretending to be a hero? I know I do, no matter the sex of the character I'm playing. Both men and women like pretending to be a hero. And also because, hello, love, the strongest emotion out there, what we all yearn for. I acknowledge that this trope isn't always love-based. Sometimes a damsel in distress may need saving for the good of a country, kingdom, or world. Anita continues on her tangent of the history of the plot device that left me asking, where do video games? Finally, after a few minutes and some needless French word origins, we are back to video games. Anita mentions an early instance of the trope in the video game medium, an arcade game called Sheriff from 1969. In it, you shoot bad guys to save a blob of pixels, or damsel in distress. Not much storyline in arcade games, period, especially early ones. If there is a plot at all, people are there to pump quarters into a machine, not to be pulled into some epic story. If you want to provide a plot as to why you're blasting away a bunch of pixels, you have to keep it simple. Save girl, get kiss. Also, why did Anita not mention Ms. Pac-Man at all? Gee, I wonder. Now let's get back to Super Mario Bros. 2. Anita claims that Peach is only a playable character on accident, since Doki Doki Panic had a female character. Doki Doki Panic had in fact 2 female characters, Mama and Lena. Luigi took Mama's place while Lena was replaced by Princess Toadstool. Now, if a female character could be made into a male one, it could have been again. Who is to say that, King Koopa could have been Lena? Or maybe a new character could have been introduced. The bottom line is that this was no accident. They wanted Princess Toadstool in this game. Oh boy. Let's talk about Princess Toadstool. Anita points out that in 13 of the 14 core Mario games, Peach has been captured. She uses this as proof that Peach is nothing but a damsel in distress. But wait, you might be saying, you get to play Peach in a lot of games. Anita says that spin-offs don't count. Why? I guess because she says so. 13 of 14 games, a damsel. Well, Peach is in 46 games outside of the core games as a playable character. 46 versus 13. Not to mention the main character in Super Princess Peach, a DS game. Heck, in the 2 of the baseball games, she is the freaking captain. 46 versus 13, plus Super Princess Peach. Defined by 13 games, only because Anita says so. Also, let's keep in mind that Peach is not the main character in this franchise. Next, Anita inappropriately applies the concept of subjective-objective dichotomy from philosophy. Anita says that because the hero is the main protagonist, he is the subject, while the damsel is the object. She's implying that the object here is the female in the same sense of treating women like objects, objectifying them. This is ridiculous because the term object from the concept of philosophy has no dehumanizing connotations. Anita is just latching onto the word object, making sure not to pass a chance to be offended, no matter how faulty her logic. She then goes on to liken the female character as a goal to be achieved. I'm sorry, but what is wrong with the goal to save someone? Here and throughout the whole video, Anita intentionally uses cold, callous, clinical metaphors to manipulate the viewers into believing there is some conspiracy against women. Next is shown clips from video games of women being kidnapped. Anita says that the hero fights to retrieve his stolen property. Where is she getting that? Where does it say that in any of these games? Anita herself is the only one referring to women as property. Sure, kidnapping in a plot is cliche, but how does this make women property? Anita then continues her misuse of the subject-object dichotomy with the line, "The damsel becomes an object in competition between men." Besides her obvious misuse of the word object, this line is very misleading. Between men. Not man and monster, or man and criminal, but just making it about male genitals fighting each other. In my opinion, seeing someone, be they fictional or not, as just their gender is sick. What a terrible outlook on life. Continuing on this feel of competition between men and women, she likens women to balls. Balls that are played with by men. An example is how Mario and Bowser go back and forth with possession of Peach. Never mind that Peach doesn't even live with Mario and is the ruler of a fucking kingdom. I'm sure that shows that she's her own person who just happens to have very bad security. Anita is trying to reinforce her view of Peach as an object by saying it over and over again. Next, Anita says the trope was used to tap into the male adolescent power fantasy. Wait a minute. Anita is implying that only males played video games in the early days of gaming. This is just flat out not true. Heck, she herself shows a pic of young Anita playing on an SNES. Not that that is incredibly early gaming, but it falls under the decades of games she's discussing. Any girl that has been playing since a young age has been playing the same games the boys were playing. Not to mention so many male games do not use this trope at all. Anita then mentions that in the 80s and 90s, hundreds of games use this trope. Out of how many? Out of how many, Anita? It is thought there's only 36 dramatic situations that can occur in a story, so it's not surprising this trope would come up a lot. In her montages of video game footage to illustrate her point, there's a lot of fighting, shooting, and platform games. Games that are not plot heavy. In these kind of games, the story is just there so you aren't just running around for no reason. These games are more about gameplay, not emotionally invested story. Note also that almost all of her examples are 8-bit or 16-bit. They couldn't practically convey a rich story because of technological limitations outside of text-based RPGs. Watered down plot or pages of text. Which one would more likely be a commercial success? As she elaborates on the trope, Anita says that women are saved for the benefit of his story arc, the heroes. Why not the game's story? Why not to the damsel's benefit too? Regarding Zelda, Anita admits that Zelda isn't helpless all the time, that in fact she can kick a lot of ass, but that she still falls under the trope because she says so. Or something. Apparently you don't need to be helpless all the time, just at least at some point, to always be a damsel. Hey, isn't that the one drop rule? I just want to take a moment right here to say, all these Nintendo games, well, they're Japanese. Japanese culture has been traditionally male-oriented, but it is shifting and evolving, and you can see that in their video games as well. Zelda and Peach have both evolved as characters with the advancement of technology and cultural shift. Plus, I would also like to note, Zelda is not the main character in that franchise. Anita says that because women in games don't or can't save themselves from capture, that it robs them from being architects of their own escape and prevents them from being heroes themselves. Well, duh. Everyone cannot be the hero, and in many cases the turned in franchise characters, they do get to be heroes in some games, or even their own games. Finally, in her wrap-up, she says, a large percentage of the world's population still clings to the thought that women as a group need to be sheltered, protected, and taken care of by men. Because video games? Actually, because of culture and tradition. And religion. You most heavily see this in underdeveloped countries where education isn't a big thing. This does not directly reflect the current culture in first world countries like the US. Her argument is like the one you hear so often in the media, that violent video games influence violent behavior. These tidbits of story are just framing around gameplay mechanics, which in the era of video games she mentions are the reason why people played or play these games. Are these games really saying that women are frail and helpless when super-sized thugs, monsters, criminals, etc. kidnap them? They are modeled huge and powerful. In most cases, the male heroes have to get special weapons, abilities, power-ups to even be able to fight them. In conclusion, let's acknowledge the past, learn from it, but not dwell on it. You can't move forward if you're always looking backwards.